Now our next speaker could be described as a cultural entrepreneur, and he is the founder of a new school which hasn't yet opened but will be open in 2017 as I understood, and it is the Kalamaja Open School, and he will give us an overview. Thank you.
Thank you.
And a round of applause to welcome our speaker.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Rasmus Rask. And I said...
Which I didn't do, I'm so sorry. Rasmus
but
Rask.
it's a good introduction. Yes, I'm a father of two. And in my spare time, I also are an entrepreneur. My daily job is that I make ice cream. But then I have some other more socially related entrepreneurships that I'm involved in. And what I would then like to speak to you, let me see, is about a dream myself and a few other people close to me have been working on now for some 2.5 years or so. And I will also tie this then together with this wonderful conference you have here, that why the school could be important. In short, we plan to open a school in Kalamaja, which is very close by area here in Tallinn, 2017. We would like to do it have a slow start. First maybe only recruit first graders, 60 to 90 students. And in the long run, it should be a basic school, full-fledged basic school, but we'd like this to become a public school. Today, we have a close cooperation with Tallinn City Municipality, and we will start as a private school with also a tuition involved. But our dream is that this type of a school could become a natural part of school network in Tallinn or also in other areas in Estonia. And as one of the founding principles of the school is diversity, then this is a conscious choice of us that we will try to pilot a methodology, a two-way immersion program at the school. I said it has been done in the kindergarten level in Estonia, but not yet at the school level. But this is just one of the aspects of the school, and I will give you a little bit more to it. The first question I think we should ask in the Estonian context, that is there a need for a new school at all? That if you take example of the kind of objective academic attainment of Estonian students, then the picture looks relatively good compared to the other countries. That if you take Estonian 15-year-olds, then in math, reading, science, their results by PISA results are very good, and the trend is actually improving. The other factor is that in Estonia the population is falling, and there are schools being closed down. I think last year 16 schools were shut down or reorganized because there are less and less children that go to school. Maybe during the singing revolution, there was around 25,000 newborns every year. Now it's pretty much like half of that, 12,000, 13,000, something like that. So in the context of less children or fewer children, and also the schools actually performing fairly solidly in the kind of global arena, then the question really is that why would we need a new school? But as as valid as is this question, I think that so is also the answer very clear. The world has changed, and in many ways we can say that the school hasn't. Again, these are photos from this neighborhood where I live today. And I remember that when I lived in Saue, it's a suburb area outside Tallinn, and I went to school there, most people during Soviet times worked there in a factory setting. It was an agricultural machine factory. So it was like factory jobs mostly. Today, the area where I live, most people work in service industry or even in cultural or kind of creative industry. So a lot of these jobs that were there 30 years ago now have disappeared. So definitely the landscape, economics, economy, society at large has changed a lot. Whereas the school really hasn't. Both in visual terms, these are like two photos from a classroom setting. If I go to my old school in Saue, then apart from the fact that there is a new gym, a new library, new auditorium, new facilities, new stadium, you name it, the way the classrooms look, the way children are taught is fairly similar to what I experienced 30 years ago. So there's been a lot of investment, at least in Estonia, into infrastructure, but maybe not so much into a content of educational innovation. And statistically, this means that, and we have been kind of looking into this, is that today, actually, there is fairly little learning that occurs in a school setting, in a classroom setting. That statistically, it's less than half of the time that children are actually engaged in deep learning in any classroom, any class session. And when I look at from a kind of employer's point of view, I would like to hire people who are able to work on complex problems and are great in teamwork. Then these type of skills are also not supported by current education. That statistics say basically that 75% of the time in every classroom is direct instruction by the teacher, and students' questions at average take less than 5% of the time. So that students basically don't speak at a school setting, and less than 1% of time is discussed on open-ended questions. Mostly it's just force-feeding prepackaged knowledge. At a typical day, a teacher may ask, and this is the reason why they are so exhausted, a teacher may ask over 100 questions. Like you have 6-7 sessions, you pose more than 100 questions to students, whereas there are only 5 questions coming from the students. So I think that what I'm saying is that, well, this is probably not new to you, but that definitely the way we live today is different from how it used to be, whereas the way we teach our children is very much the same as it used to be. And even these PISA results, when you dig a little bit deeper into the results, you see that when it comes to solving complex math and also literacy related problems, then also Estonian students are not doing that good. There's only 15% of Estonian 15-year-olds who can solve or understand complicated text and analyze them. Saying that, of course, I mean, you can criticize this, and then the question is that what can you do about it? Like, what is the model school for the 21st century? And when we have been looking into this, I think that there is a lot of consensus around that. That even the teachers themselves, school principals, are fairly consistent. That the school setting and the way we teach should be changing. that there should be more about student learning and less teacher teaching. Teachers should be teaching individual children and not classes as such. That social and emotional skills should become as important as academic skills or attainment. And that families should be brought more into the context of learning, family learning. So this is when there have been studies made, and most teachers agree to that. It's not that there is a this comes as a new thing, or they're objecting to that. I think what is the real challenge is that how to achieve that. Like, what is the practical application of transforming a school? How you do it practically? So basically, the problems there is that the curriculum today already in most countries, what I know, and definitely in Estonia, is already overloaded with different subjects. That it's very difficult to add there another subject on, for example, bullying, school bullying, or some other social emotional discipline, because it's already full. And even if the schools could afford to add another subject, the children themselves are overloaded and probably could not take any more school time or any more learning. So it's basically a question that you need to change the system, not by adding there something, but doing something very differently. I need to spend a little bit time on this picture as well. We started out 2014. At the time, my son Hugo was 7. I was hoping that we would start 2014. We didn't. We are in 2016, and then looking to open in 2017. But at the same time, I feel that this time has been definitely worthwhile. It has been quite an intense work. These people who are on the picture, these are our founding fathers. We all have our story to the project, but for me it started when I made a call to Artur Taevere, who is a wonderful social philanthropist. He's the founder of the perhaps most influential Estonian social philanthropy organization, Heateo Sihtasutus, and also was a founder of a program called Noored Kooli, which is a branch of a UK program, Teach First, with the mission of bringing young talents straight from the university to a teaching job, that they would spend 2 years in a challenging context, at a challenging schools. And this has took off really well in Estonia for some 10 years now already. And when I asked Artur that, do you have anyone from this Noored Kooli alumni network who would be interested in working on a new schools concept, then he immediately referred me to Helen Sabrak, who's an alumnus of this program, and who's a wonderful example of what I feel is a 21st century teacher and also a potential school principal. We're soon joined by Margit Aasmäe, who has a background in business consultancy and also has made investment into educational projects. These two photos are taken in Oxford. We were visiting two, what I think were really good examples of innovative schools in UK, which gave us a good understanding what is done in other countries. But it also gave us a good opportunity to kind of lay down our founding principles. And you see on this right photo, these are the buzzwords that we scratched down, that what are the kind of the main principles for our school. You see that they're innovation, for every child, koostöine mean collaborative, close to home, kodulähedus, and the last one, but not the least, läbilõige, cross-section. And I think that this cross-section issue has been most dominant. At one point we felt that yes, I think we will make some innovations definitely, but innovation per se is not the objective. Perhaps the strongest bedrock of this work has been the idea that we want this school to be open, Kalamaja open school. We want this to be inclusive, that we believe in a broad-based inclusive education, that this would be probably perhaps the most important cultural, even maybe economic foundation for our society. But next to these founding principles, we also carved out the design principles. And there are many of them, but I just want to highlight one of them, which is, I think, important in this context. And this is called evidence-based. That we have taken quite a bit of time carving through a lot of studies to understand what type of educational methodology strategies are actually evidence-based and which are not. So to sort of to understand that these things work and these things do not work. And it's just an example of a site, it's a UK-based organization called the Education Endowment Foundation, who has gone through hundreds of studies made in different universities and meta-level studies, and then combine this into a kind of a compact framework where you understand fairly easily that there are some things that have a very strong and positive and feasible, doable impact on mostly still academic attainment, and then there are some things that actually do not, or may have also a negative impact. So, for example, that I think that fairly intuitively you would say that feedback has a very strong positive impact on students understanding what is doing well and then what is not, and then what could be improved. Whereas on the other side, you see that repeating a year is not such a good strategy. This hasn't been used in Estonia for maybe some 15 years already, so we're good with that. But it's also good to know that we have made choices. We have made choices which are actually in line with evidence-based. But also there is a setting or streaming, which is the idea that you would divide children into different groups by the level of attainment, or that there are sort of basically some English or math groups where are like children who are doing better, and then the others that are not doing that well. Basically, studies show that this has a counter effect. It is not valuable. It is actually counter-effective. So these things should be taken into account. And why am I saying this? Why this is important is that when it comes now to this, the promise, what we promise to the parents, and also the methods how we are going to achieve that, we came down to that this language immersion is one of the most effective educational strategies, educational methodologies. That you should have that. You should have that as a strategy at school. That basically language immersion is the most effective way to learn any language. Doesn't matter if you have a cultural or an integrational agenda involved. It's just most effective. You should do that. So that's how we came to include it. Of course, yes, we were all about diversity and inclusiveness, but to our table it came as an effective methodology. Alongside with project-based learning, this is what we feel is that we would like to implement more extensively, do away with the traditional subjects, and share that students would share time between learning basic academic skills, training math, languages and science, and then they would apply these in a project setting, which is similar to what the context could be when they go to a job. Mastering 4 languages from the promise side, I think that it's fairly evident for us, at least for us, that if you live in Estonia, you should definitely, of course, you need to know Estonian, but you also need to know Russian. You need to master Russian. English probably comes on the fly, not too worried about it, and programming skills probably also a must, a hygiene factor in the next generation. Children, they should be both smart and nice. They should understand themselves and others, and finally, or maybe even most importantly, they should enjoy school and life. This should be a wonderful journey for them, not an ordeal. I will not go into, had an example of like how these projects could work, but maybe we will skip that. And just repeating or basically diving into this two-way immersion programs that we were skeptic of that, but as much as we did reading and we did a lot, we didn't find much evidence that if the programs are designed systematically, if there is a proper attention, proper design put behind that, that this is an effective methodology. That we know, and maybe you have covered this during these 2 days, that language immersion programs, students attain high proficiency both in the native language and the target language. In mid-term perspective, they have similar or even better academic attainment than the students in the kind of regular program, and they develop on top of that a more positive attitude towards a different or other cultures. So this is on the promise, or like what we would like to achieve from that. There are two main risk factors or main things to consider. One is that the parents' attitude or parents' perception of that. In the first 4 to 6 months in this language immersion setting, students are in the sort of latent learning phase, that they are not yet conversational in this target language, and this might feel kind of disturbing, or the parents might feel that they're not learning anything, or that they're struggling. So this is something to consider, but I think that it's also something that can be considered and can be communicated clearly. The other thing is that the other critics is that language immersion and also two-way language immersion, it might be too difficult for children with learning difficulties. And this is, I think, a fair fact, that this is a fair thing to consider. For us, in the model, we attack this, or we cater to this by having more teacher resources to the class. That we foresee that basically if you have you have 30 students in one class setting, then for each of this class there are 2 teachers. Like one is a native speaker in Estonian, and the other is a native speaker in Russian. So basically you have 2 teachers per class. And yes, a slide about like how this practically would be set up in the two-way language program is that all children would study in one language for a certain period of a day, from like morning session from 9 to 12, and in the afternoon session they would study in the other language. So basically every day they would get a fair share of both languages. This does not mean that they don't have language sessions. They still will have a kind of a grammar and more specific language subjects as well. But basically we assume that all the subjects, whatever is taught at school, it is in 2 languages. With the teachers, I think that the main principle is that one face, one language. That if you are a Estonian native, you only speak as a teacher, you only speak in Estonian. If you are a Russian, you speak in Russian. No translating. All in all, I think that we are all set to go 2017, and I hope that you wish us luck and then wait for the results. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have a very quick question in regards to this school. It's extremely provocative I think from an educational standpoint, and at the same time, it's extremely revolutionary. But at the same time, it's not something that hasn't been already tampered with. So how open do you feel is the Estonian society for more schools like these?
We know that when we opened an interest school, or basically after-school program this autumn, where we teach programming and then science for kindergarten age children, we have an enrollment of more than 100 children. So there has been I would say, a keen interest in this. I don't know how prevailing or how far can we go with this, but I hope that this could become if not the main, but at least a solid alternative school model in Estonia.
So it's, yeah. Well, thank you very much.